Alrighty, guys, welcome to my Self-Love with Sarah podcast. We are making goodness attractive, and I have my good friend Pete here.
Hello, hello.
This whole making goodness attractive, I've selectively chose people that I've been inspired by, have obviously been making goodness attractive in my eyes, and you've definitely been one of them.
Thank you.
In only like 6-7 months, you've been a big staple to my life and everything that I've been going through.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, your daily.
As of you.
Good. And your daily text and all that is important. And I think that's why we're going to lead into this series of what we're going to talk to you about, all your stuff and all that. Yeah. You're just, how are you doing is always super important. Yeah.
When we talked about coming on here or me coming on here, we didn't really talk about a topic at first.
Yeah.
In my head, I knew what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
As you know, mental health awareness and suicide prevention to me is lately over the past, I'd say 6-7 years has been super important to me. So when we talked about coming on here, I said, what a perfect platform to get that word out there.
I know. Pete was every podcast I put out there, he's like, me. And, the men series is huge because I think it's just so important into, I don't know, us women, empowering women is one thing, but you men you're the leaders and you're the most important one. So if we're not pouring into you guys,
you can't forget about the men.
Yeah,
I think the perfect balance between men's health, women's health, and conquering it together, because mental health, everybody can suffer from the negative side of it. But like I was saying before we started, we should get used to talking about mental health and suicide prevention and the positive things, so it never leads up to that point.
Right. And I think that, with, again, everything that I've been through, just those little check-ins and those little just, hey, how you doing? Have a nice day. Sometimes I don't even get to answer back because I'm busy. But it's just I feel like you probably do that to a lot of people. I know it's not just me.
I mean, to be honest, sometimes that's all it takes, and I think my backstory and why this means so much to me will make sense as to why I do that. As you know, I was in the Army for quite a bit of time, and I did 2 tours in Afghanistan, which led me to my current career, which are 2 separate, different times of my life. You know, not only just physically where I was at, but mentally where, I found myself. It's kind of odd. I landed in Afghanistan my first time, Christmas Day, 2007.
Wow.
So at this time,
that was
17 years ago.
Wow.
So you think about
how old? You're a baby.
I was 20. Yeah. So today, 17 years ago, I was in Kyrgyzstan, a completely different mindset, literally getting ready to push into Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
I was 20 years old.
What made you go?
I'm from Newburgh.
Yeah.
I'm from Newburgh. So what made me go?
Yeah. Were you in a bad place? Were you getting in trouble? I feel like that's how boys, young men.
Growing up in Newburgh, I think, and I don't want to harp too much on this because I think the other stuff is important, but growing up in Newburgh, I think you're built different.
I could agree. I'm not from here. I live here now.
You are built different.
Yeah.
So I went away to school up near Albany and
college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably wasn't doing the right thing.
Okay.
My mom's going to watch this probably, but I probably wasn't where I should be. And
who is when they go to Albany?
I know. And you know what it was? It was weird because I was 19. I turned on the news and I was like, I want to do that. I want to go to the Army, whether it be Iraq, Afghanistan. I didn't know what that meant, but it set me up. Fast forward, I told my mom, she was devastated. My dad was supportive, but fast forward to, like I said, that Christmas Day where I touched down in Afghanistan, mentally, I wasn't, subconsciously, I didn't know what that meant or how that was going to traject my career, traject my emotional and my physical and my mental health. Right. It was the first tour was super kinetic is what we call it. So it was very tough. There was a lot of what we would call one-on-one fighting.
Okay.
So you lose friends and teammates and people around you. And if you notice, I wear this bracelet. This was a kid who was 18 years old. He was killed, unfortunately, there outside our outpost. But why we're sitting here and why I'm so passionate about the mental health aspect is I also had somebody on my team commit suicide on July 4th, 2008.
Okay. What
that meant for me at that time, it meant, I'll be blunt, it meant absolutely nothing because I was blinded. I was in go mode.
Yeah.
We were
survival.
There was no time to cope. Just like when somebody gets killed on your team, there's no time to cope. You just go, right?
Yeah. There's no time to grieve.
at all. So I think we talked about it briefly within the team, like, hey, we need to look after each other. Like, why did this happen? But we never really dove into why it happened.
And I feel like, yeah, your team probably never did, right? Like that's not part of it.
It was never.
Nobody sits down and says like, how do we prevent this, right?
Right, exactly. So that happened. The tour, we pushed through the rest of the tour. I came back. I started my career and did both at the same time.
Okay.
Which was challenging in itself, which probably created some of my own mental health, issues or struggles or things like that, things that I had to face.
Right. What is your career?
I'm in law enforcement. Uh-huh. We'll leave it at that. It's been very good to me.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to travel the world, 61 countries, meet so many different people, build so many different relationships, all which are important to me, but it's also tough. It's also a tough career. Yeah. You're away from home. You don't get to see your family a lot. You miss Christmases. I think my first 7 Christmases I wasn't home. So I'm a proud dad of a 9-year-old girl, right?
So she was born then?
She was born in 2015.
Okay.
So I was still traveling the world, when she was an infant.
Yeah. If that doesn't screw up your mental health,
right. And I was blinded by all. Like I was in go mode. Like I didn't see, like, why was it important for me to be present at home? Why was it important for me to be present in relationships? Why was it important for me to be there for my friends, my family? And the reason why I became, or I do what I do, let me be careful. The reason why I do what I do is because a good friend of mine who also did it, who our families grew up together, and out of respect for the family, I'm not going to say his name, but he encouraged me to do this job, and him and I were much alike, go-getters, but he was super dedicated to his family. And in 2018, he took his life. So that to me was like, I need to pause.
Can I just ask you before you say that?
Yeah.
You said he was super dedicated to his family. Yes. Do you feel like you were more dedicated to your job than your family? When you said that, you made that. Yeah, yes. You made that. I was
100% dedicated to the job more than my family. Yeah. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Before I was like trying to pretend.
Right.
And Savvy has a great mother.
Right.
She's been supportive of my career up until this day. Yeah. So I'm super thankful.
So it's like in your mind, right? You think like, well, the guy that was super, like more like family was everything. Not to say you weren't, right? I'm just saying was in that place,
of
right?
Course. So he, and again, it was why I do what I do now with like the suicide prevention and the suicide awareness and mental health awareness is he, like if you took him on the outside, super happy, super generous. I wrote his eulogy, and everything I talked about, like he brought home to everything. Like he brought his kids to work, like to sporting events and kids to work, and he couldn't wait to get home. And like to me, I was like, man, that is amazing. Like you literally bring your life to everything that you do.
Right.
So you look at it like that is, you admire that.
Of course.
Like he had that balance. He found the balance. And
that's like so,
and looking back on it now, how he did that, and to me, it's like, I guess that's the reason why the awareness thing came like on my forefront is like I missed a lot of things.
Yeah,
we rode to work together every day, and the day it happened, I like instantly circled back to like how, like why did this happen?
You blame yourself a little bit in a way?
Not blame, but like I'm not blamed, and I don't want to get into too many details. Again, out of respect, but I after it happened, I said, could I have done anything differently?
Right.
Like, do I blame myself? No. Were there things I could have done that maybe have stopped it? No. Maybe.
Right.
Like when you talk about mental health and all, like you don't know what they're going through, and I clearly didn't know what he was going through. But I think like he was like a hard-boiled egg, like that you just couldn't crack, So trying to dive into that, and that was kind of the turning point, like I said earlier, as to why we should be okay with talking about mental health. Like it shouldn't be something that we hide, right? Like the analogy that I use is if your check engine light is on in your car, right, and you ignore it too long, like what's going to happen? You're like your engine's going to seize up, or you're going to need a new transmission, and like if you just ignore it. So what do? We typically go get it fixed. I equate
so many people ignore it though.
Right. But my point is
sometimes one of them.
Right. But at some point you have to get it fixed. So I kind of equate that check engine light with your brain. Like if you broke your arm, you'd go right to the hospital and get it fixed, right?
Right.
Your brain is not something that we internalize it and we probably think about it, but we ignore a lot of the struggles that we go through.
Couldn't agree
You
more.
know, or we mask it. I think that's what a lot of people do is they mask what's going on inside with something else. Let me do this. For me, I'll tell you what it is. Like when I struggle or when I'm going through a struggle, I go right to work.
Yeah.
I'll work 16, 17 hours.
Okay.
Like if you see me working 16, 17 hours, call me.
Really? Okay.
Like call me because I don't need to do that every day.
Yeah.
Seriously. So, and other people do other things
Right.
to hide it or mask it. I think if we get to a place where individuals, and I know it's hard, where they can recognize when they're not feeling something or they're out of their routine or they're doing too much for other people.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we can get to that point, but more importantly, I think is if you can get to a point where the friends around you or the family around you can identify those behaviors that are not maybe who you are inside.
Right,
you know?
right.
There's just so many different things that we take for granted. Like,
Yeah.
and I think our mind is one of them. I think we think, oh, it'll go away.
Yeah.
You know, like we had that conversation. We went out to dinner, right? And we were talking about like, you're trying to do so much. You're
Right.
trying to do so much.
Yeah.
You're trying to.
Pete made me cry at dinner.
No,
by the
like
way.
you're no, because I
was
just
bawling
but-
because he was so right. He was so right.
because like what I said was like you're trying to put water into like 8 different cups, and when you do that, you forget to drink water yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to like take a step back and focus on one thing and get yourself back on track, because the more and more we delay the recognition, I think that's when we start waking up in the morning and we're like, what is wrong? Like, what is wrong with me?
Right.
And sometimes it may be one thing, but there's also times where it's like an underlying, like, I don't know what it is, right? Being happy, they say, could be a choice. And you could, I guess, choose to wake up happy, right?
Of
but
course.
there's going to be days where it's going to be gray.
Well, just like this man
Right.
that you're speaking about.
Correct.
Like
There's going to be days where it's gray, and that's okay. It's okay to have those days. But I think it's understanding why those days happen, but more importantly, understanding that you're not going to go through that day alone.
Right.
I think so many people forget that people love you, like everybody around you. Like, and when we talk about those check-in texts, if you don't answer me, or if like my friends don't answer me, that's fine.
I know.
You can be busy.
You do it without any like
Life
response or expectations of anything.
Right. Life happens, right? But for me, it's me letting you know I'm thinking about you, no matter if you can respond or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes that text goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I've had people
It does.
text me like 5 days later because they're somewhere across the world like, hey man, I really appreciated that text.
Yeah.
I'm glad you remembered it was my kid's birthday. You know, and like that to me is like if we could do one good deed per day, it's like that's small. That's small.
It goes so far.
Yeah.
It goes so far.
Like I was thinking about it driving here, like what is it that mental health and what is it that drives us as human beings? And I think a lot of the stuff that we talk about is like what's on the surface, right? Social media obviously drives a lot of things right now. It drives our businesses. It drives like what we like to do. I mean, there's algorithms in our phone that could essentially mess up your mental health. Like just because you're searching stuff that might derail you.
Like all my algorithm's all relationships and divorce and marriage right now.
Because that's what you're dealing with, right?
Exactly.
Right? And that's okay.
Yeah. So like one wrong freaking Instagram reel.
Correct.
And just
and
like,
it can derail you. So we talk about relationships. We talk about finances. And I think at the end of the day, those are the things that probably
take people to that next level.
Right. Trigger it. Like, the underlying, I think, is shame because you're like, how can that happen to me?
Yeah.
Right? Like, this isn't what I planned.
Do you think people just they just can't handle it? They're just holding it. They're just like pushing it down?
What I think, like, when it comes to relationships, at least this is for me. So, like, everything I'm saying is like what I think I went through.
Right.
When you're in a relationship or you are talking to someone, whether it be married or it doesn't matter what stage of the relationship, right? Like
an intimate
after I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, who also is a great person, this is a couple years back, I was like, let me let me see, because something was wrong with me, right? Like those are two great women in my life that I wholeheartedly could say were awesome people, you know, and I probably was the issue. So I was like, let me see what it is about a relationship that I need to be better at.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when you fall in love or you're in love or you see yourself in love, it's not so much yes, maybe it is the person, but it's who you are when you're with that person, right? For me, it's like you're in love with like the idea of marriage, a house, the kids, who you are. Yes, you have feelings for that person, and you truly may be in love with them. But I think more so on the mental side, it's like who you are because of that person.
Explain that to me.
Like, for example, when I broke up with my ex, I spent that year and I was like, okay, I'm ready to date, right? Like, I think I'm ready to do this again. And I met somebody and we were talking for a little while, and me personally, I felt great. Like I felt like such a good person. Like I was like, finally, like I feel amazing. Maybe
but it was based off of the person, how they made you feel?
Like how they made me feel. Like, you know, the check-ins every day. How are you doing? Good morning. Like what, like for me, it was something, and that's probably way deeper and like a lot more internal, but like for me, that was like, man, this like really feels good.
Right.
And, you know, she's probably going to hate that I even bring this up because her and I are friends now, but like I felt really good. And I was like, man, I could see a lot. Like I could see this felt amazing. And it's probably because maybe I didn't feel that for a long time, but like I felt so good. And it's not that
that's heavy, right? I feel like same. And it's like, how do you get to that place without a person, right? Making you feel that way.
And I'm not saying they defined you, because you can't, somebody's not going to make you happy, right? You have to be happy yourself. And with the same breath, like when relationships don't go well, there could be a lot of underlying things, right? There could be past trauma. There could be feelings that were from a previous relationship, or it could be for whatever the case may be. But I think when it doesn't go well, you can't allow yourself to get in that, oh my God, what is wrong with me? You know, because it isn't what's wrong with you. Like, and I think that's where I was like with this specific person. Like I was like, when we didn't work out, I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, why am I?
Because now it's like third time.
Right. Because I like worked, and it's not that we were that serious, but like I had worked a year to try to like figure out like what in my mentals was like did I need to do, and like that. Then to come to find out, like she also has her own struggles. You know, like. To the point where it's like, no, like you're a good person. Like I want to break every mirror in your house, because like if I hear you say you're not good enough one more time, like, or you're struggling one more time, like it's okay. So like I think relationships, and as you know, you're going through it. That's not a secret, and it's hard, but you can't let that one specific thing define what you have left. You know.
Yeah, and I think that, and we touched on this just before we started. I feel like a lot of everybody's issues are relationship. It's really like I feel like majority of everybody bases everything what they're going through, and I wonder why.
And when you look for like a partner, like for me, when I look for a partner, and this does involve mental health, but like when you look for a partner, it's like, how much of a burden can I be to you? What I mean by that is like when something goes wrong or I'm bothering you, are we conquering it together?
Right. Or am I annoying you?
Or are we dividing this and doing it separately? Like that person should be that person for you, right? And then of course, in relationships, then what comes after that? Finances, right? So everybody talks about finances and how am I going to get this done? Or how am I going to buy this? Or how am I going to buy that? Like lately for me, I take a step back. Like because that was something that drove me. Like
did it drive you to make money, or buying things that make you happy?
Correct. Buying things that make me happy. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
And in talking about my friend who did commit suicide, like he was never no, he wasn't. Yeah. He was opposite. So like I wanted to be, he didn't spend anything. Right. He was frugal. Yeah. He didn't spend a thing. Yeah. So I'm like, how
you can't take that when you leave.
Right. So like when I look back, I'm like, how did somebody who loved his family so much, didn't spend money.
He was like the perfect man.
The finances were fine. Like in my eyes, I was like, this guy is like the epitome of what you wanted. He has 3 beautiful kids. Like to me, it's like he was a great dad. He participated in everything. So when I look at those two things, relationships and finance, and how did it drive? And
him and his wife were good.
Of course. I mean, I can't.
Yeah, nobody knows.
I can't speak on that.
Yeah.
there has to be something. Something was there that again, out of respect, but there was something that was there that didn't sit well with him. And I think sometimes we let our pride and our ego get in the way. So when that happened, I was like, how do we get past and how do we address it? Like, I was so frustrated that this is happening over and over and over and over again to men and women, and like 800,000 people a year commit suicide. That's like,
do you know the statistics? Is it more men than women, or women? I wonder.
It's more men than women.
It is, right?
Yeah, it's a lot more. It's a lot more men than women. It's like 70%, something like that. And I think that's because men internalize everything. Women are not saying women don't,
right?
But women aren't afraid for the most part, aren't afraid to share their feelings with their girlfriends.
Right,
like I'm not calling up my boy like, yo, it's not it
like
today.
Crying.
Like, but I've had that.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine him and I are not really, we're not really seeing eye to eye right now, but like he had no problem picking up the phone one time when he was struggling. And I felt good about that because I've always, since this happened in 2018, I've always said, call me. Like, I don't care what time of day it is.
Right.
That's part of it. Being available to your friends and your family and just letting them know that you're there for them is super important. It's more for like the law enforcement military community, but we did this thing called the Spartan pledge.
Yeah, which I wanted you to touch on that.
Yeah, which I thought was super awesome. And if I could rewind the clock 10 years ago, I would have did it then.
Yeah.
What it was is, and what it is the Spartan pledge is essentially a group of guys who were also looking for an answer to like bring awareness to suicide prevention and mental health awareness. And they created this pledge, which was like, in a nutshell, and I don't have it in front of me, but in a nutshell, it's like, I will not take my own life without calling my friend or battle buddy first. What that means is if you're thinking about it or you have thoughts about it, just pick the phone up and call somebody that you love. And it's an oath because when you're in the military and law enforcement, you take an oath, right? To protect and defend the country. I
didn't realize that. That's so beautiful.
That was like the connection there is like, I'm not going to break the oath to my country. And that's not an oath that I'll ever break. So like if more people could see that or if we could relate to that or bring that to more people, I think it just adds something. It adds a layer of protection for that person.
What are you going to do that every year?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it every day.
Yeah.
So like the last event, we had a good amount of people, like a really good showing. And what I said to them, I said, if none of you showed up and only one of you showed up, it's still a success.
Of course.
Because that one person is going to tell 10 people and those 10 people are going to tell somebody else. And it just brings more awareness to something that everybody's afraid to talk about.
Yeah.
Nobody should suffer in silence. You know, that to me is probably the worst thing you could go through as an individual is something eating you inside. So I'm not saying it happens overnight. Like your problems don't get fixed overnight, right? Like you internalize stuff too, but then we become comfortable talking about it. And I think every time we go to dinner or do something, we talk about like our life's problems and struggles, but like,
I think it's important to talk about like how to heal too, you know, and how to just like, what you got to do, the steps, like what do they look like for you? Because obviously this is a lot of stuff that you had to heal from.
So like, I think, and not to rewind back, but like when I was 20 and went through that, I was numb to it. Yeah. Like I got back from Afghanistan, I'm like, yeah, I signed up for that.
Right.
Like,
gotcha.
I literally was like, I signed up to go to war. So okay, like that happened.
Right.
Drive on.
Right. Move
like,
on.
Put your stuff together and drive on. And as I got older and I don't want to say more mature because I had to mature fast. Like when you go to war at 20, it's like, I remember getting my 21st birthday card in Afghanistan and it like, I was literally like, my friends are out having beer and I'm on the side of a mountain somewhere.
How many years were you in Afghanistan?
Well, the first time was like 2008 and then the second time was 2012.
Okay.
So,
gotcha.
But like, it didn't care.
Yeah.
So then like fast forward and like my second tour, I was actually nervous and it plays into the mental health because now I'm thinking about like what could happen and am I good enough and am I going to come back from this? You know, like that was the first time I saw my dad cry outside of like my grandfather's funeral. So like for me, what I did after that, because I think everybody who goes to war comes back with some sort of mental health struggle, right? And it's a spectrum of things. Yeah. I think everybody handles it a different way. What works for me and like what works for my friends and I is like we get together, and this is not on a daily thing, but like we get together once a year and we go do our Army fun stuff at my friend's farm. And
is that the one you did over the summer?
We do it in the summer, but we do it every Veterans Day. Okay. So we go up in November,
right.
And like it's now grown to like 10, 15 people, and
so fun.
Like we literally tell stories from 17 years ago, as if it happened yesterday.
Right.
And I think other people can do that. So like you don't have to be in the military to get together with your friends and talk about good times. And it's just a positive way, because we always associate mental health with negativity.
Right.
Like find a positive way to go through your daily routine. Like don't always look at it as like mental health is like a negative thing. Like what can I do positive? Like for me, I wake up in the morning, I make my bed, right?
Yeah.
Admiral McCraven said this at some graduation, like make your bed.
Yeah.
It's the first task of the day. And I think when you get on a roll, when you get that momentum,
it just like trickles.
It trickles, right? So we use the gym, right? Like I know you're at the gym a lot. I try to go to the gym every morning, if not in the afternoon, whatever my schedule allows. And there's a study out there too that I was reading up on, like the gym is like 1.32 times more powerful than like any medicine or pharmacy in replacing your mental health.
Agreed.
Like that seems like such a small number, but in reality, I mean, how good do you feel when you come?
Just moving your body, you know?
Like open the curtains at your house, move your body.
Some sunlight.
Like yesterday, I couldn't go to the gym. Shit was going on. Open the curtains. Like I took my yoga mat out, which is another thing that for me, I started like over COVID, like yoga was it. And people look at me like, you do yoga? I'm like, first of all, like, no, but it's like, it helps my mobility, helps my flexibility.
It's so good.
And I never went into
downward dog.
I never went into it thinking, like, oh, this is going to help my mentals.
Like just stretching.
But it does. It like literally helps my mentals. And
breath work.
So
right?
it's the power of that is crazy. Mm-hmm. And I was so naive when I went into yoga. I'm like, yeah, it's a workout. No. By the way, I challenge anybody. Go do a hot vinyasa, like go and come talk to me. Say it's not a workout. So like again, everybody is different. You're gonna find your own thing, and I just ask that if you see somebody struggling or you see them out of their routine, right? Like if I know you're at the gym every day and I see you for a few days, and I'm gonna ask you like flat out what's wrong,
right?
Like. And I think that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about mental health awareness, don't be afraid to ask your friends, your family, like what is going on with you?
Right.
Because people are scared.
I think it's a being observant too. Everybody's like moving so fast and like, nobody really like pays attention.
Right.
To even somebody that's walking down the side of the road and is struggling, or in the food store or wherever,
like, you don't know what somebody's going through on a daily basis.
Kind.
And I bought this sweatshirt off Instagram, but it was too small for me. And my daughter wears it. And it's like, it says something like, be kind to the person like behind you, like, because I'm thinking about you, something like that. It was like a nice motivational sweatshirt. And I was like, you don't know what everybody's going through. Mm-hmm. Like, and mental health isn't like, it's everybody struggles. Yeah. Like, it's not just people like you and I. Like, I sat at dinner, it was a late lunch with a bunch of, like, my friend Doug took us to dinner and we were trying to get this mental health TV show off the floor. And, Joe Sikora from Power was there, and Tony Ayo, and a lot of powerful, prominent, well-known people. And they're all talking about like their mental health issues. And like, you're looking at them like, and you got it all. Like you're on a TV show, you got money.
They're the ones that probably,
Right.
Yeah.
So I say it's mental health and suicide is something that we have to get comfortable talking about. And when you see somebody who's at that point, don't be afraid to say, don't do that, or I need you to do this. Like, please promise me. And I think that promise is something that at least I've learned. Promise me you will not hurt yourself. I'm on my way to see you. Yeah. Right. I've had to do that a few times. Like, I'm literally in my car on my way to see you. Promise me you won't hurt yourself. And that's like 89% successful, something like that. And those are good statistics. So.
Well, you are like pouring into so many people. I hope you're pouring into yourself.
Yeah, but that's important too. And I will say this,
like, because you're talking this, all like you're saying all this, and I'm like, oh, I'm the worst person right now because I can only focus on like 2 things. Me and that little guy over there. You know,
I'm the same way. You know, with the savvy.
But you're so good with it.
But by doing this is my accountability.
This
is my accountability, and I've made it my accountability.
Yeah.
And I made a promise to a lot of people very close to people who suffered from suicide, and because people forget about the families that go through that. Like, and I've made a lot of promises that I will not rest until like the word is out there. And if that takes however many days, years, months, whatever the case may be, it holds me accountable, right? It reminds me what I need to do. And it also just spreads the word. And I think that is the most important thing. You know, just don't be quiet.
Yeah.
You know, you're not alone.
No.
Like that is literally like the most important thing, because people are shameful. They have guilt. But if they just realize they're not alone and check in, you know, check in. Those check-ins are so important on good days too.
On good days.
On good days too.
Yeah.
Like,
you know how many people are going to blow you up now when you like tag you and everything?
I don't care. I don't care.
This is the guy, everyone. Reach out to him.
I really don't care. Please do. Like I am going to be available to whoever.
Yeah. And that's a big reason why I have him on here.
And it doesn't take much.
Your movement here.
It does not take much to be nice.
All right. Well, as we close things out, what do you have to say? What would you like to say? We have a big reach here, and this is your time.
Well, I mean, one, thank you for having me. I like, to me, this is super important, and I'm appreciative of you. Like really, like, because I know you have a big following, and if I could say one thing, you know, to the audience who's listening, is it's okay to not be okay. Like I think so many times we put ourselves in a position and forget that. Like, it's okay not to be okay. There are resources available to you. There's people that love you, and you don't have to suffer by yourself. Find the little wins, right?
Yep, the little wins.
Take those little wins, and whether you celebrate it by yourself or with your friends or your family, don't look so far into the future on something that, yes, it's a goal of yours, but don't wait to celebrate those wins, right? And I think that positivity.
Little ones, not the big ones. Right. I think because of social media and everything, the world today, everybody's like focusing on the big wins. It's like, no.
Right.
Those little wins, the making your bed.
Exactly. Like celebrate those little wins, and don't let the distractions deter you from what you want to do and who you want to be. Don't be afraid to be yourself, and just know at the end of the day, you're not alone. We don't do this by ourselves. No. None of this happens alone.
Agreed.
So thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to come on here and like really spread the word.
I'm so proud of the man you are. In the last, like I said, I've only known you, 6-7 months now?
Yeah.
8 months, something like that. You've been such
I feel like I've known you longer.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You've been such an impact on my life. You have. Yeah. So
as of you, I appreciate you. Thank you.
This is making goodness attractive, you guys. And this is where we're at. And I'm so excited. Thanks for watching. You can check us out on YouTube on sagabeauty.com. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Bye.